If you follow any of the stories about when there's a man-eating tiger, they don't care just one person. Once they start killing people, they kill a lot of people.
I want to talk about Tiger King.
Okay.
So it's so popular right now.
Yeah. It's very entertaining. I see why. It's a freak show.
Did you like it?
Not really.
Why not?
I think it's scary.
Why?
I think those guys with all their guns and their threats and their, if you come near me, I'm going to blow you away.
Yeah.
And I'm lying to you about caring about these animals. I care about my ego and sharing these with people until they're old enough for me to go sell them to somebody. I just didn't.
What would be the law that would apply to someone like Joe Exotic?
Well, there's the Animal Welfare Act, and that's a law that's the only federal law that applies to him. You got to get a license under the Federal Animal Welfare Act, which has been more gutted in the past 3 or 4 years than ever before. If you're going to exhibit, you have to have a license, but that's all you have to have. And it means you got to look like, at least if they come and inspect you, that you're treating these animals fairly humanely. It does not prevent you from breeding them, which is a huge, huge problem. Transferring them, selling them to anybody.
So do you suppose he had a license?
I expect he had one of these Animal Welfare Act licenses, which are pretty pathetic. It means that you can get one and then they might come and examine you, but they got all sorts of people to look at. They're not going to come very often. And I don't know that they even come unannounced. And so it wasn't much of a risk. And if you do something, then, fix up your act and you can keep on going. This guy, the way he was feeding these animals was the Ware-Mart leftovers. Apparently that's even what they made pizza from. The pizza thing. So apparently we can eat it as well. So it must have been pretty good. It's just, actually that doesn't bother me as much as a lot of things. I
mean, when you saw the conditions those animals were kept, did that raise alarm bells for you?
Not as much as, well, the fact is that he had 200 and some odd tigers. I mean, he had enormous numbers. When things started to go south, you saw all these tigers when they didn't have enough food, all together, running around trying to get the food. It was just so awful. And when it got to the point where he couldn't keep going, apparently one of the things he was convicted of is killing tiger cubs. I'm not sure which is worse, frankly, killing them or selling them to people who have no business owning them.
Right.
In their house. And, in places like Nevada, you can just have one in your house next door to your house.
The most shocking thing was in the first episode where he's talking about why he started this documentary, and they open the van and there's a snow leopard in it.
Oh, it's terrible. Isn't that a terrible thing?
Like how is it even, I don't.
Because there's this secret trade going on and it's not even that secret. I mean, there's so little actual enforcement of this stuff. I mean, the only reason he got in trouble is not only was he killing cubs, but he was also hiring someone to kill somebody, human being, person.
Right.
That was enough.
You know what was really telling to me was that really the only way that Carole was able to go after Joe legally was through business law. Like she eventually destroyed him through like trademark law, through copyright law, through IP law. That was like the only thing that was legally effective.
Because she's a private person. What else could she do as another private person to try to get him? I mean, that requires the government to do something, and they weren't willing to do anything. So, and you have to wonder what's going on now with COVID-19, because guess what? A lot of these places can't even stay open, and if they don't stay open, how do they feed their animals? And then what happens?
I hadn't even thought of that. What did you think of? What was the name of the woman?
Oh, that's the other. Of course, Carole. And of course, there's the whole backstory about did she murder her husband? But frankly, that's got nothing to do with animal stuff. So I'm going to assume it doesn't matter whether she did or not, because that's really got nothing to do with whether she's doing a good thing now.
Yeah, what do you think about her? I mean, do you think she's part of the problem? Like, I mean, the way they portrayed it was like, is she part of this is she part of this solution?
Well, she doesn't breed them.
Yeah.
When she takes them because they're already in existence. She doesn't breed them. She keeps them in cages because there's not much else you can do with them when you have a tiger or a bunch of tigers. She keeps them in cages. She feeds them. She shows people them, and she has an industry, and she has a huge ego, and she's a control freak. But she's stopping the breeding of exotic cats.
Yeah.
And her goal is to get this statute passed that would stop people from being able to own them at all. Not to have them for exhibits, not to have them for it all, unless there's some kind of licensed real zoo for breeding purposes for animals who are almost extinct, to really repopulate them, not what these guys are doing.
Do you support that kind of a law?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, totally.
I mean, is there, like, if Congress really wanted to aggressively regulate this, I mean, would they in fact be able to seize these animals and remove them? Like, or do you think that would cause constitutional problems?
What would be the constitutional problem?
I mean, I don't know, maybe there aren't any, but like, you know,
taking of your personal property, that's what they would argue.
Sure, like a
They'd be arguing without compensation. And that's why I think they have to grandfather them in, probably, is that it would be, you know, unless they're doing the crossing the line in how they're treating them, and they're not, you know, I think they have an argument for taking. And
what about if you paid them?
Well,
Like,
if you have the money, sure.
I'm gonna pay you, I don't know how much these animals are worth, I don't even know.
Well, quite a bit, I think, but you have to put them somewhere, you know. It's like the Mustangs.
Like wild horses.
Yeah, wild horses is a disaster.
Yeah, tell us about, like, you know, the story with the wild horses.
Well, the wild horses is, we have the Wild Horse and Burro Act from 19 something or other, and it's lovely, you know. You can't kill a wild horse, but they occupy the same territory as the cattle, and so we can't have them there, and they multiply pretty quickly, especially because we've gotten rid of a lot of the predators, and so they have to round them up and put them in pens in Kansas. Literally. And we're paying millions of dollars every year for Mustangs in pens in Kansas.
Okay, here's a question, a totally ignorant question on my part. Why can't we just, like, release them in the wild, in their natural habitat?
Well, they need huge amounts of spaces, and there's all these human beings that live in those spaces now, and they will kill them. They are man-eaters. If you follow any of the stories about when there's a man-eating tiger, they don't care just one person. Once they start killing people, they kill a lot of people. They're terrifying. You know, I actually went to this amazing place called Chitwan in Nepal, which is near the border of India, which had, I didn't get to see a tiger, but it had rhinos and tigers and all wild elephants, you know, and, you know, there are places like that, but there are very few of them left. I mean, they just are, and there's fewer and fewer because there's more of us. I mean, and, you know, you can tell a person from India or Nepal, hey, you got to leave enough space for the tigers. And they'll look at you and say, like you guys did, you know, who are you to tell us what to do? And I don't blame them.
Do you think any good will come out of this Netflix show?
I hope so, but I don't know. You know, it's mainly for entertainment. And I think that's what most people are treating it as. And the people, I mean, there's a lot of people who are sympathetic to this poor Joe Exotic. I mean, and think he's gotten a raw deal and are trying to raise money for his appeal. And I'm not overly fond of Carole Baskin. Seems to be quite a flawed person. And for all I know, she did murder her husband. I mean, I'm not kidding. The story about him and him just disappearing is, as a human being, it's not a positive thing, you know? No. And she is definitely into it, partly for her own ego, making money, being cool, being famous. But overall, is what she's doing better? I mean, if she's going to be around and not put in prison for murder, then is what she's doing a good thing? Probably.